Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So three documentaries that I've been meaning to talk about. I don't know if I've already talked about the Derek Garraway one. I think it was called Kate Garraway, Derek's Story. I think it was ITV. That one. Um, there was also another one, 20 Days in Mariupol, which won an award, I believe, an Oscar maybe, I think. And more recently, Darkest Days, which is Israel-Gaza conflict 6 months on, something like that. I'll try and put the links of the YouTube links so you can see little clips of them. I suspect they're either on BBC, iPlayer, or ITVX, or whatever thing on YouTube, I guess. So, first with the Derek story. I thought I did do this, but I'm not sure, so if I repeat myself, sorry. It was interesting to me to see. I didn't know much about. He was an MP. I know about Kate Garraway a little bit, not very much. He passed away recently. I think it was in January, wasn't it? And it has been about a month or two that I saw it. But it was interesting to see his story of how much it costs to look after someone who is fit to leave hospital, as it were, but with a medical condition that is, I guess, terminal. That you don't know how long you're going to get, whether it's going to be years or weeks or months, and it looks like there's not much help from the government. I didn't know all that. She was saying it costs so much money. She's quite well off. I guess they're quite middle class, well off. But she was saying her wage wasn't enough. So imagine the people that earn less than the minimum wage, how they must struggle with this. Because it came after I watched the bit about a sister dying, and I was thinking, well, why don't they have a sister? And then when I saw this documentary, it made me think, well, this is the reason, because maybe the people, say it was me, for instance, who had some terminal disease, I may think, well, let me just do the assisted dying because I know my wife's going to lose the house, or she's not going to have enough money, and they're going to struggle, and then I'm going to be in pain and all that kind of stuff. So that could be where it may be misused or used in an inappropriate way, because obviously the state, the government, the man-made construct that we live within, I mean, if we didn't live in that, then they wouldn't have this money problem, and we can help each other out like we're supposed to. But in the system we live within, it should be, well, I assume the problem is I guess it depends, like the state probably say, well, you're not our, well, you are a citizen. So I don't know if they could say that, but I don't know what the solution is, because they don't seem to have enough money for the NHS, don't seem to have enough money to run countries. Every country seems to be in debt. And with all these conflicts going on, it's getting even more expensive. They always seem to have money for war. They can give a Ukraine this amount of money. I'm not talking about not giving it, but what I mean is that there's always money for war and weapons, but it seems that it's billions and billions and billions just to do these things. And we all know that however great the NHS is, the care within it isn't that great, really. There's a lot of things that are getting missed and not done properly. Well, that's the constraints of money and the man-made constructs that we live within, and that's why I always challenge those, because we needn't have those challenges. We needn't have those restrictions, because we have all the resources, we have all the money, we have all the mind power, we have all everything that we possibly need for all of us to have a good existence, and probably a better one, because we'd be working together rather than working against each other, which is our current structure. Anyway, so that was a really good documentary. I watched it ages ago, but it was quite moving. The fact, I did, like same with the Annabelle thing that I did recently. I was thinking about it for days, thinking about the moment where that he was starting to try and walk, and then he died shortly after that, and there was a bit where he was like really in pain or confused in bed. They didn't show it on camera, and it was really quite upsetting. And imagine these things that are happening every single day, everywhere, to people, not only to the actual people, but also to the family members or carers that look after them, and how difficult this is. And unfortunately, like I said, our system works against this. Um, So I'm going to give you the next one, but I think I can hear the water running, so maybe my daughter's playing with the water, so let me pause it. Sorry, yeah, it was Lena. She had the hot water running. She likes to turn it on these days. The joys of autistic children. So there's the sun too much coming through. So yeah, so that was really interesting and harrowing, really, to see the suffering that people go through. And his condition didn't seem too bad. He just seemed like he was in bed and just not really wanting to talk, or it was quite, I can't remember if it was MS or what it was now, but it seemed very sad. Oh, he had COVID, isn't it? It was to do with COVID, something to do with COVID. Derek Garraway, and it was called Kate Garraway, Derek Story. So the next thing is 20 Days in Mariupol. Now, I wish they'd show these things, same with the Darkest Days one, at the time of these things, because on the Ukraine stuff I've seen on TV has been a lot less than, say, the Israel-Gaza stuff when it comes to the emotional side of it, which is, what they usually use to get you to support a war or whatever, or journalists like to put this stuff on TV to be able to, because they think it makes good TV, good news or whatever coverage. I'm sure it's about truth telling as well. But this 20 Days Mariupol, it was really interesting to see what's really been going on in Ukraine, and the stuff they showed there was really quite distressing. They didn't really show a lot of this stuff on the news, or if they did, I didn't see it, because with the Gaza thing, it's quite easy to see, the destruction that's going on, the innocent people that are getting killed in hospitals and all that kind of stuff, where you don't really, in the Ukraine thing, it didn't really look like a war. It looked like, a building would get like a little rocket in a building and a little bit of smoke and not really that damaged. It doesn't look as bad, but this documentary showed a lot more, and it showed the hospitals, and there was little children that they were trying to bring to life that got damaged. And that's when they show that. And I know, like, the news, they don't like to, but certain things they like to blur out and not show us, but I actually think that's wrong. And I think there should be a channel or a time where full access is shown to these things, because then we would stop supporting war. Hiding it from us and blurring it out is allowing us to sort of think, well, we're sanitizing it and thinking that it's okay. And, then you can sort of sleep easily and support, war, or not think about it. But if you actually saw, like, this footage, and even it is edited and not that, but to see these children suffering and dying, these babies, innocents, because of land that Russia wants to. I mean, Russia's huge. I don't understand why it really wants Ukraine. I assume it's because of, trying to send the West a message about NATO and borders and all that kind of stupid stuff that humans and men seem to be so caught up on, even now, that was meant to be different from our predecessors for 100 years of putting flags in bits of land and saying, this is mine, this is my border. But we're still living in that, because that's the construct that we're living in. And why we don't break that construct, we're always going to live in that, this is mine, this is yours, and we're not going to help each other, we're going to fight for it. I mean, imagine people losing their lives, innocent people losing their lives, even the people that are soldiers that are brainwashed into killing each other, thinking that they're different, whereas they're exactly the same, even speak some of the same language and same words, but brothers and sisters of humanity fighting each other for bits of land that you can never ever own, and all you're really fighting over is who's going to actually control you. Is it going to be Zelensky, or is it going to be Putin? Yeah, maybe obviously one is better than the other, but still, at the end of the day, this is your master, as it were. You're like who if you were a slave, would you ever want to be a slave and have someone controlling over you? But that's the system that we've allowed ourselves. I know it's completely different. I'm not trying to use that as an analogy, but the idea of that we have people that we elect out of the choice of two old men, of which of making all the decisions for us, and a lot of corruption, all the things that seem to go on. It's not a perfect system. It doesn't work, and it isn't beneficial for the majority of us. But this documentary really showed what I hoped they would show before, of how bad it is in Ukraine. Because a lot of it, you can see the news and think, well, it doesn't look that bad. And they're not saying it's a war, it's a conflict, or whatever they're saying. And obviously it is a war. A war's war. Anything where you fight two people is a war, or whatever. They do it. But the fact is that it showed the real suffering that's going on, and the unfairness. Imagine, like, there was a bit where they showed um, through a window watching as the tanks were starting, and they were thinking that they've got the Z tanks, these Russia, they're actually coming now because they were on the border. They kept saying, no, we're not going to go. I think I've covered this absolute truth. And then to imagine if it was me and looking out the window and seeing tanks coming and knowing that your life now is maybe forfeit is very scary. And that brings me on to the Darkest Days, which I've started watching, haven't finished it. I've watched a bit about the music festival, Nova, wasn't it? That was very harrowing. I didn't see anything like this before. And it's taken 6 months for this to get out. I mean, I know it's been in the cinema and things, but this should have been on the news more in depth about the things. I think sometimes they like to make it so like journalistic, so maybe that's why it doesn't fit. But I think it's important to show these things to see how bad it was. That these were people that were just partying, and I know they covered that, but when you hear people talk about it, when you hear the actual mobile footage, and this is what the media seems to neglect a lot, they don't like to use people's mobile footage. But we're in an age of mobiles. Everyone is a journalist now that has a phone, and this is the stuff. Even though if it is filmed in portrait mode, it's very important to show it in full. To show, they showed like a woman, two girls hiding in a portaloo, ducked down, and then they were showing Hamas footage of they were shooting at head level through these things, and they're hiding under watching shadows of gunmen and hearing Arabic and Hebrew. And then they showed like the footage of the road when cars were driving and people just shooting people and saying Allah Akbar, Allah is great, God is great. Like, how can you think that that is great what you're doing? It doesn't matter whether it's your so-called enemy. Remember, we're all human beings, and God tells us that we're all brothers and sisters of each other. We're all human beings, despite the divisions that we've caused for ourselves. But how can you think that's great, that you've got a gun and you're just shooting random innocent people, women and children, just people that were having fun? Whether you believe in what they're doing, this doesn't make any difference. But it just looked, when I saw that, like how harrowing that must have been if it was you or one of your loved ones driving through there and having to hide in forests or having to hide behind bits of, the DJ desk or whatever, while people are shooting, rockets are going off. Imagine living under that environment. We don't know how lucky sometimes we are. It just reminded me of like how it would have been for Jewish people in the Second World War, of when Hitler was around, and the stars, and that you're Jewish and you have to wear this star to identify yourself, and then they come and round you up, and you have to, like with Anne Frank, hide in the attic and all that kind of stuff. How, I mean, it terrorized me when I read that story at school. Often I used to think, I don't know if I've told you, that at home I would think about, like, if people came in, the bed would hide into the wall, or I would hide under the floor. That, even though it wasn't Germans or Nazis, that came from reading that story and getting that idea of that fear. Imagine living through that. And now, in, how many years after the Second World War, and still Jewish people are still having to hide from people that just want to kill them just because they're Jewish. Nothing else, because this isn't like, this is a soldier killing another soldier. There was nothing, there were just people having fun who, just because they were Jewish, that was good enough for them to be able to open fire and say, God is great. What kind of God would ever sanction or love that? And this isn't an attack against Islam or Jews or Judaism or Christianity or whatever. These tags, and people misuse these things. These are not, when you read the Bible and the Quran, it talks about peace, it talks about humanity, all these things. This is human beings who are doing this and misusing things and misusing the very beauty that we have. You wouldn't, and then when they show the Red Crescent and what they're going through, you see it's from both sides. One side killing the other side just because they're not, it's very much like the Nazi or the Daleks in Doctor Who, where they have this idea of eradicating the other side, or Quatermass in the pit. Just because they're different than you, that means you can let go of the fact that they're actually just like you. They have family, they have love, they have emotion, they have one existence. So yeah, these are the 3 documentaries. I'll put the links on. You can see clips of them in YouTube. I thought they were really interesting. really enlightening. And I wish they would show more of this. I wish they would show more of the actual raw footage fully of these things. And I think then there would be a lot more people against the idea of war. Maybe it would actually stop people growing up into being soldiers or being generals or being those dictators or being those leaders that want to fight wars, or terrorists, because they see how it really feels and how it really is. Take care, take it easy, guys, and peace.